All right, so we got another Mummy movie, but this time it is done by the same writer and director of Evil Dead Rise, a movie that I really enjoyed. And this movie is being produced by Blumhouse and Atomic Monsters, so Jason Blum and James Wan, which I like James Wan quite a bit. Blum, he's got some stuff under his belt that I liked, but so now they decided to produce a new Mummy movie. And so what's different about this take? Well, what I'll say is when I heard about that they were going to do another Mummy movie, I was kind of on the fence about it because I was like, all right, like the last Mummy movie that we got was Tom Cruise's, and that was just shit on a stick. And so I'm like, all right, what are you going to do differently? Is this going to be more of like, the original where it is kind of like, a slow burn, but, horror, just straight up horror? Is this going to be like Brendan Fraser's Mummy where it is kind of like, fun and, all that stuff? Or is it going to be like Tom Cruise's where it doesn't know what the fuck it wants to be and it just goes off the rails from there? But I saw the trailer and I was intrigued, so I went and saw it. And, well, damn. Just damn. So, this Mummy movie is about a journalist whose family is kind of is not really vacation, but they're in Egypt and their daughter, Katie, goes missing. And 8 years later, she's then found. But she is found in a sarcophagus. And they start to think, what the hell happened to her? Like, between then and now. And just a big, giant mystery starts unraveling. And, you could say crazy stuff happens, but, whatever. So, right off the bat, what I do have to say, what is good about this? So first off, I want to say that this movie, I've seen a lot of people like it and a lot of people hate it. And while I agree with both sides, I'm in the middle because there were stuff in this that I did think was cool. And there was stuff in here where I was like, I don't really care for that. So what I can say off the bat about what is good is that the mystery of, okay, what actually happened to this girl? Why is she in a sarcophagus? Why is she wrapped up? Like when they find her, she's wrapped up in, the classic mummy, I guess, toilet paper, whatever. But they all have like passages in there. And it's like, it's kind of intriguing. Like, yeah, what is this? Like, what is this stuff? And then, why is she, behaving like this? And I do like how they, they think it's all, shock and stuff. And, you were in a sarcophagus for 8 years. Of course, that's going to be shocking. But it's all like, it's a process. So I do like how they use that as the center stage. And I do like what they were going for. And when the mystery is then unraveled, it's like, oh, okay, that is kind of messed up. That is messed up. I'll give you that. Number two, the other thing I think is good is this movie is brutal. It is gory. Yeah, I remember, seeing advertisements and a lot of them were saying like, oh, this is very rated R, and it was like, okay, I've seen that before. Like, come on. But it was pretty gory. He definitely got a lot of Evil Dead down. And now here comes the bad. Speaking of Evil Dead, here's the bad. I have seen this across the board, and I do happen to agree with it, and it is a little bit distracting. This movie, despite it being called The Mummy, does not really feel like a Mummy movie. It feels more like an Evil Dead hybrid Exorcist movie than a Mummy movie. What I feel like this movie is doing is imagine like you get, a giant cake. You just, baked a cake. The outside of it, it's all mummy. looking. It looks pretty cool, you know, and then the second you slice into it, the inside, you're going, that doesn't really look mummy, but okay, let's try it. You then take a piece, and then you start to eat it, and you go, this tastes more like an Evil Dead movie. And then the next bite, you go, this tastes more like an Exorcist movie. But you still happen to get a little bit of the mummy frosting on top of it. So you feel like, okay, this part feels like Evil Dead, but it has like a little sprinkling of the mummy on top of it. Or the next scene, it's like Exorcist, but a little bit of mummy. That's kind of how this feels. And so while I think it's an interesting idea to have this be kind of like an Exorcist Evil Dead movie, I don't think it really works for a mummy movie, or in particularly this kind of version, because you're called the Mummy for a reason. Now, if I think that this movie was not called The Mummy and was called something else, like completely unrelated, then I'd be like, okay, this feels like a mummy movie, but it then starts unraveling and becoming more of a, you know, dead Exorcist movie. And I'll be like, all right, that was, you know, kind of a cool idea, which I do think is a cool idea, but you're called the Mummy and you're really not doing a whole lot of mummy stuff. Is that it feels like a Deadite from Evil Dead is using a lot of the mummy traits. And while I don't think that's a bad idea, I don't really think it worked very well for this. And that's my biggest problem with the movie, is that, and they do, little spoiler, but they do connect this to Evil Dead. They actually say like, oh, it's this. And I went, yeah, I don't think that really works. Sorry, but I don't think that works. I love Evil Dead, but to me, that just does not work. So that's my biggest gripe with this. The other thing is this family, I didn't really care for. You know, even kind of before, you know, Katie goes missing, we kind of get a little prologue of them in Egypt. I was like, I'm not feeling you people. Like, sorry, I'm just not. And then, yeah, it kind of started little going off the rails from there. And it was very disappointing because I was going like, you know what? This looks interesting. I'm going to go see it. And it was just okay. I just thought it was okay. Like I said, it had some merits that I did like. So overall, this did have stuff to it that I did like. But with those things that I liked, there was a bunch of other stuff that I don't think didn't work. And if they were trying to go more of an Exorcist Evil Dead route, then this shouldn't have been called The Mummy. It could have been like, you know, Exorcist versus Evil Dead or something, but don't call it a mummy movie if really the top of it is just the mummy. Like I said, it's like a cake. You know, the outside part is the mummy part, but the heart and soul of the cake is the inside. For me personally, that's just when it comes to cakes for me. But when you look on the inside, there's no mummy in there. So when you're biting into it, you're getting a little sprinkle of that mummy frosting or whatever else is on top of it. And everything else, it feels like a completely different movie. So I don't think that really worked here. So that's my biggest gripe with this. But overall, you know, I can't deny nor argue with mixed feelings for this. You know, it definitely was it was kind of feeling like a little roller coaster at times, but yeah, like I said, I keep hating to repeat myself, but yeah, it just doesn't feel like a mummy movie. But I give this maybe an average. The gore and the mystery are definitely the high points, but some character decisions and it leaning outside of its, I would say, playing field definitely brings it down. It definitely brings it down a little. While I do applaud them for trying to do something different, I just don't think it's something that completely worked. Or it could have worked a little better if this hadn't been called The Mummy. So that's personally what I feel like, and yeah, we'll see what next Mummy movie we're going to get, which is Brendan Fraser is coming back for 4. So we'll see about that.